What is up guys, it's Modded Warfare here, welcome back to another PS4 tutorial. So one of the topics I've not covered very much so far for the 9.00 series is of course mod menus and developer menus. These are ways that you can add a lot more, options, a lot more cheats and mods into your games than what you can typically find in trainers and, cheats like the GoldHEN cheats. So you can do a lot more with mod menus and developer menus. Obviously, mod menus are menus that modders have added into the game to allow you to play around with it. And also you have developer menus, which are menus that the developers of the game were using to debug and test the game during development. But in some cases, they've actually left those developer menus in the game code, and they can be just enabled with a simple mod that changes a value from false to true. Or in some cases, it may require, a little bit more, like adding some UI option or replacing a UI option to be able to open the developer menu. And they also provide a ton of options for messing around with the game. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few of these different mod menus and developer menus and the different ways that you can enable them on the various different games that support them. So first of all, we'll go from the easiest to enable to the more tricky to enable. So to begin with, we're going to take a look at Rockstar games. So games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. These games contain mod menus that are available, quite a few different mod menus from various different mod developers that you can enable. And it's pretty straightforward to do this. All you need to do is have a copy of the game, whether it's a retail copy or a fake package copy, and it needs to be on an update that is supported by the mod menu. So in GTA 5's case, you've got like 1.38 is the highest update that you can run GTA 5 on right now on a 9.00 PS4. So that's the number that's actually supported right now by the mod menus, as well as the base version 1.00. And then some of the other updates are like the highest updates that you could get on previous jailbreaks, like 1.32 and 1.33. So in order to enable the menu for GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2, all we need to do is use a payload. Now, most of these payloads you can find in some of the exploit hosts, so even KME PS4.site or Caro218.ir. Those are the two kind of main exploit hosts that I usually point people towards. So this one here, KME PS4.site, does indeed have GTA 5 mod payloads and Red Dead Redemption 2 mod payloads as well. So in my case, I'll do GTA 5, but it's exactly the same with Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. So we go in here and we have the different mod menus. So there's quite a few different ones. We've got wild mods, we've got laments. So I'm going to use the laments menu version 0.9 GTA 5 1.38. Again, I'm just picking a random menu here. I don't know which one's better than the others. So, you might want to have a look and determine for yourself or try all the different menus and find out which one you like best. But as you can see here, they are for different game versions. So for this one, you've got like version 1.33, 1.32, 1.27, and 1.00. So you need to be running the payload that matches the version of the game that you have. So in my case, I'm on GTA 5 version 1.38. If we go to information, we're on 1.38. If you have a retail copy of the game, you can download a specific update by using the patch installer homebrew app, which will allow you to select a specific update to install. So you just select one of the updates that's supported by the mod menu. If you have a fake package copy, then wherever you got the fake package file from, there's probably an update there as well that you could download for one of the compatible versions for a mod menu. So if we head into the internet browser here, we go back here to our GTA 5 payloads, and we're just going to run the GTA 5 1.38, since that is the game version that my copy of GTA 5 is running on. So we're going to select this, and this just loads like any other payload. So if you haven't already jailbroken your PS4, it'll ask you to insert the USB drive. Obviously, I'm already running the GoldHEN payload, so we shouldn't have that problem right there. So, okay, there we go. So Laments loaded. We've got the Twitter account there of the developer by the looks of things. So if we hit the PS button and then head back to the game and launch it, and then the mod menu should get triggered on load. So we should get some notification here when we initially load up the game that will let us know that the menu is being loaded. There we go, right there, running patch. So sometimes it will say something like, EU detected, US version detected, or it may come up and say a setting up environment or something like that. Just before the game loads, it tells you how to open the menu, so right and square at the same time. And we've now loaded up into our save here. So if we head out, we'll take a look at this menu. So right and square at the same time opens the menu. And as you can see, there are a ton of options in here. So if I go into player options, for example, we can go to the model changer and we can actually, change our model to any particular character in the game. We'll just get the alien going here. And then also if we head back to player, there's fun mods. There's a bunch of stuff here. God mode, super jump. So we can press square to jump really high. We've also got, obviously I'm not going to go through the entire menu here because there's a ton of options, but there's some pretty interesting stuff here as well. There's like a Naruto mod that I found in here earlier, which is pretty crazy. So you press R1 and you can like run really fast. Let's see, what is it? Jump. Triangle to jump really high. And yeah, pretty kind of crazy stuff right there. And then of course we also have the ability to teleport. So we can go to teleport locations. We can teleport anywhere on the map. We can go ahead and teleport to the top of Maze Bank as an example. And there we go. And then a few other things. Obviously there's a vehicle spawner as well. We can go in here. We can select a modded vehicle to spawn in. So for example, you can spawn in a toilet and ride a toilet around, I guess. So I think there's another one that's like a couch that you can spawn in. You can just ride around on a couch. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of crazy stuff in these mod menus. That just barely scratches the surface. There's tons of options in here. You can give yourself weapons. You can spawn in other NPCs and set them as bodyguards to protect you. You can drop money and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, set weather effects as well. You can go into the world and set the weather effects to change the time of day and the weather and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, there's lots of different options here with these kind of mod menus. And this is just one mod menu out of about 4 or 5 different menus that you have for GTA 5. And you have a few menus, I believe, for Red Dead Redemption 2, which all have kind of similar options because it's also a Rockstar title. So it will have very similar options available as well for Red Dead Redemption 2. So those are mod menus, and those are quite easy to enable. You just run the payload, run the game. As long as you're on a compatible version of the game, it should theoretically load up the mod menu for you when you load up the game. Pretty straightforward. So that's one of the easiest mod menus to get up and running. So next, we're going to take a look at developer menus for Naughty Dog games. So for example, you've got games like Uncharted 4, Uncharted Lost Legacy, The Last of Us Remastered, and The Last of Us Part 2. All of these games have Naughty Dog's dev menu built into them, and you can enable them with a simple mod. So in order to do this, we're actually going to use the GoldHEN cheats to enable the mod. So in order to do this, you are going to need the GoldHEN Cheats Manager to download the latest cheats so that you can get the cheat that actually allows you to enable the developer menu. So I've done a full tutorial on the GoldHEN Cheats Manager. I'll leave it linked down in the video description. So go ahead and check that video out if you don't already have the application. You can download it from the Homebrew store if you don't already have it downloaded. So all we need to do is open up this application. Okay, and once we actually get into the application, we just need to hit the update option, and that will go ahead and download the latest patches from the repository. So there we go, extracting files. 2,855 cheat files are installed, along with a bunch of patches, 192 patch files. So once you've successfully downloaded all of the cheats from the cheat repository from the internet, then we can go ahead and close out of the application and then load the game. So in my case, I'm going to be doing Last of Us Part 2. So again, the dev menu is pretty similar between all of these Naughty Dog titles. It's pretty much like the same dev menu, but obviously there are different options depending on the game that you're running, whether it's Uncharted or Last of Us or Last of Us Part 2. Okay, so here we are in the game, Last of Us Part 2, just loaded up one of the save files. So if I hold down the share button to take me to the GoldHEN Cheats menu, so in here we have the enable dev menu option because we downloaded the cheats from the GoldHEN Cheats Manager. So we can enable that option and then just press circle to go back into the game. So from here it says dev menu on. So now if I press both sticks down at the same time, L3 and R3, then Ellie will go into her kind of meditation state, which allows me to no clip. So I can use, just the left stick to move, and I can clip through walls right there. So I can go right through solid objects, and then I can press R1 and L1 to go up and down. And I can basically just fly around the entire map here using this ability. I'm trying to find the horse. Where did the horse go? Is that it over there? Here's the horse. can get back outside. There we go. All right, so if we go ahead and press both sticks down at the same time again, then it will allow us to drop back down, back into the game world. And to actually open the dev menu, I believe you have to press left stick and the touchpad down at the same time, and that will open up the dev menu right here. It's pretty small. There is another way to enable the dev menu that might be a slightly more extensive dev menu with more of the options filled in. And you can do that by installing the dev menu as a patch file instead of using the GoldHEN cheats to enable the dev menu. In order to do it that way, to get a bit more of an extensive dev menu, if you want to go that route, you need to have the GoldHEN patch plugin installed, which again, I've covered in a previous video that I'll link on screen and in the description. But if you have the patch plugin installed, then you just go into the GoldHEN Cheats Manager again, you go to the patches section this time, you find the game by pressing triangle to filter to The Last of Us Part 2, or whatever game you're doing this on, whatever Naughty Dog title. You select it, select the Enable Dev menu option, and then when you run the game, providing you have the plugins loader enabled in the settings, in the GoldHEN settings, then when you load the game, it should come up saying patches have been applied. And then from there, you'll have the dev menu enabled by, again, pressing left stick and touchpad down at the same time. And using the GoldHEN patched version instead of the GoldHEN cheats version of the menu is slightly bigger, slightly easier to go through the options here. And I think it does have some more options kind of filled in, instead of some of the options in the GoldHEN cheats version just says unknown, whereas a lot of that information's been filled in with the more extensive version with the patch plugin. But anyway, as you can see, there's a bunch of options here. Like I showed you guys, you could no clip around, you can set the frame rates, you can add debug options on screen. I think you can give weapons. You can also do things like slow down the timer, so you can basically have the game running in slow-mo, or you can speed things up and make things run faster. So a bunch of different options there with the dev menu for these Naughty Dog titles. I think some of the dev menus may even allow you to change your character models to different characters as well. So quite a lot of cool stuff you can do there with the Naughty Dog development menus as well. Or if you just want to kind of have a peek behind the curtain on how these games, how the maps are made, and just to fly around and see if you can spot any Easter eggs or anything like that, then yeah, you can do that kind of stuff with the development menu. So that's us covered mod menus for Rockstar games, for obviously GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and also, of course, Naughty Dog games with the dev menu for Uncharted and The Last of Us series. So that was enabled by simply just changing a value basically in memory, or it's probably a bit more complicated than that, but that's the general idea. The next thing we're going to look at are Techland developer menus. So that's developer menus for Techland games like Dead Island Definitive Edition, Dead Island Riptide Definitive Edition, Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2. Although Dying Light 2's dev menu, I believe, only works on the base version. I think they may have removed it from the newer versions of the game. So you need to be on the base version for Dying Light 2, whereas it does work on higher updates for the other games that I mentioned there. Because the way that the dev menu needs to be loaded on these games is a bit different. So in this case, the dev menu is still there. It's just there's no UI option to actually go into the dev menu to access it. There's no pathway to access it. So you can basically change that path on the UI from going to the hints option to the development menu instead. And that's how it's done. But that involves replacing a file. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can either use the GoldHEN plugins. There's an AFR plugin which will swap out the file when you load the game, or you can just patch the entire game by installing a modded game update that contains the dev menu right there. That will be the easiest method. So if you have that exact version of the game, in this case it's version CUSA 12584, which is the version I have right here, CUSA 12584. So you just download the modded update, the dev menu update, you copy it to the root of a USB drive right here, or you can put it in the package folder, in the data folder on your hard drive through FTP if you wanted to, and install it with the package installer that way. And then either way, we're going to connect our drive up to our PS4. And then from here, we're just going to go to GoldHEN, debug settings, package installer, make sure we're selected on, USB hard drive or all, depending on what drive the package file is stored on. We're going to go into the package installer here, and we're going to select the dev menu package and let that install. And it shouldn't take that long because it's just the development menu, so it shouldn't be too long. Okay, in this case, I got an error message. So in my case, it doesn't seem to want to install it on top of this particular version of the game. So this is some of the problems you might run into if you don't have a compatible version of the game for that modded update. Then the modded update isn't going to apply properly. So in my case, it didn't install properly, but in your case, it might install just fine. So if it installs fine, that's great. You can launch the game. The dev menu will be there and it'll be working just fine for whichever game you're doing, Dead Island, Dying Light series, whichever one it is. And obviously it needs to be for the correct game version as well. So in my case, that didn't work. So there's another way of installing the dev menu if you're running into that issue, and that's using GoldHEN's AFR plugin. So I'm not going into much detail on that in this video, but I have already done a tutorial showing you how to set up the GoldHEN plugins, including the AFR plugin, which once again, I'll leave linked in the cards and in the video description. But anyway, if you do have the AFR plugin installed and set up already, then you can install it that way as well. So if we switch over to our desktop again, then we have the menus stored here. I'll have a version of the menu for all of the different, games, Dead Island and Dying Light series. So in this case, we're just going to open up the Dying Light dev menu. We'll extract that out to our desktop. And then from here, all we need to do, if we go in here, you can see we have an AFR folder, and then a title ID folder, and then the actual game file is right here. So all we need to do is copy this AFR folder over to our PS4, which we can do with FileZilla with FTP. So if we go back to our PS4 again, if we go to GoldHEN and we go down to server settings, we want to make sure enable FTP server is ticked. If you turn it off and turn it back on again, it will give you a notification that will show you what your IP address and port number is to connect to, which is what we want right there. So if we switch back over once again to our computer, we're then going to load up an FTP client like FileZilla or WinSCP. We're going to punch in that IP address that showed up in the notification, so 169 in my case, and then the port number was 2121, and we can connect. And then from there we can go into the data folder and then the GoldHEN folder, and then we can just copy that AFR folder in here. Now obviously if you already have an AFR folder in here, then you would just go into that AFR folder and just copy the folder for the game, the CUSA12584 in this case. So in my case, I'll just copy the whole AFR folder in. So in my case, we've copied that over, AFR CUSA12584. You're going to want to change the title ID folder here to the correct title ID for your game. So again, mine is correct. Mine is CUSA12584. You can show your title ID labels, by the way, by going into the cheat settings in GoldHEN and showing title ID and app version is what I have it set to. And then you can see on the actual app itself, the CUSA number, which is the title ID of the game, 12584. So in my case, I do have the title ID named correctly for that game. But obviously, if you have a different version of the game that has a different title ID, you'll want to rename this one for the dev menu here to the same title ID as your version of the game in order for it to work. So with that enabled, we should be good to go. And I do have the AFR plugin enabled as well. If we back out into the GoldHEN folder, if we take the plugins.ini file and copy that file out here to our desktop, you can see that we do have the AFR plugin set as default. You could also add it to the title ID of your game as well if you only want to enable the plugin on a specific title. But in my case, I just have it set for default for all games. So there we go. That's basically it. So all we need to do now is switch back over to the console and we should be able to run the game. Now we want to make sure that we have the plugin settings, plugins loader enabled, and then it should work. So we'll go ahead and run it right here. We'll update later and get the dev menu loaded. So obviously a bit of issues there with the AFR plugin. By the way, this is normal with Dying Light 2, the base version. It stays on a black screen for a while before it actually loads the initial cutscene, but just with the base version. But that's one of the things that is a bit more complicated with the AFR setup, but it does have its advantages. The advantage is that if you do have one of those modded updates that does not install because there's some mismatch between the version that you have installed and the modded update, then you can use the AFR plugin to swap out the files at runtime instead, which should give you better compatibility. Plus also you have the ability now to disable the dev menu if you want to do like a clean playthrough where you don't have the dev menu enabled. Then you can just disable the plugins loader and load the game, and then it will not swap out that file, so you will not have the dev menu enabled. But when you do want the dev menu enabled, you just enable the plugins loader, load the game, and then you'll have the dev menu enabled. So pretty handy plugin all in all once you have it set up. And again, if you're struggling to set it up, check out my video that goes over that. All right, so there's no information in this particular version of the dev menu on the main menu to let you know that it's actually loaded. I believe there's another version from DeathRGH that does have some kind of notification that pops up in the main menu. But anyway, we're just going to go ahead and hit continue with the current save. Okay, we loaded up into the game here. As you can see, we're just right at the very start of the game. So what we're going to do to enable the dev menu is we're going to first of all hit the touchpad button. In this case, you can see I've got like no weapons here. I've got no crafting enabled, no skills or anything, no money. So anyway, we're going to go over to hints because it's the hints that have been replaced with the dev menu. So if we scroll over to hints with R1, it enables the developer menu right here. So we've got items. For example, we can basically just give ourselves any item within the game. So here's a bunch of different weapons here that I can basically just give weapon. Go ahead and activate that. There we go. So if we go back out here, you can see I now have that weapon enabled right there. And then once again, we can go back into the dev menu by going over to hints. We can go to cheats, for example. And here you can do things like enable God mode, cheat mode. You've got things like the weather. You can change the time of day and the weather effects. As you can see right there, they don't all work right now because I'm in the very beginning part of the game. But we've also got forced weather time as well. So you can do all of that. A few different options there. Show FPS, invincible mode, and a couple of other things. But if we go back, we also have a player menu. And in here we have even more options. Unlimited ammo. We can enable all skills, which will just give me every single skill in the game. We can drop health. We can give ammo. We can give ourselves credits. We can just spam that and give ourselves a bunch of credits. And then also there's like, debug information you can display on screen. There's like debug mode there. And then you can also in the cheat menu, there's free camera, which is basically like no clip where you can start flying around. And as you can see, our player is has no head. The camera is our player's head. So he's just a body. And yeah, you can go ahead and fly around here. I think it's left trigger to zoom even faster. You can just kind of fly around the world with a kind of full no clip mode right there as well. So pretty awesome stuff right there. This is a pretty extensive dev menu. There's a ton of options. Again, I'm not going to go through them all in this video. This video is just about how to enable these things and get a bunch of mod menus and developer menus enabled for a bunch of different games. But there you go. So that's Rockstar covered with Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5 with the mod menus. You've got Naughty Dog games with Uncharted and the Last of Us series with their dev menu. You've also got Techland with their dev menus for Dead Island and Dying Light. And obviously there are other games out there that have similar debug menus or dev menus available for them that usually enable in one of the three ways that I showed you here in this video. Either it's a payload that you run and then run the game and it will execute it on launch, or it's either going to be a GoldHEN cheat that you can just enable, which is just reading and writing memory, or it's, a GoldHEN patch, which is patching the executable of the game at runtime when you load the game, which can also be enabled with the GoldHEN Cheats Manager, or it's replacing actual game files like here with Techland games. You have to replace the actual game files, in which case you can either just install a pre-modded update that will patch the game with the necessary files in order to run the dev menu, or you'll have to use the AFR plugin if you're having any issues installing the modded update where you can actually replace the game files on runtime with that plugin. So again, if you want to know how to set up any of those plugins that I kind of skipped over here in this video because that wasn't really what this video was primarily about, then check out my video on the GoldHEN plugins showing you how to set those up. If you are running into issues with the GoldHEN plugins, by the way, I have heard that deleting the GoldHEN folder from the hard drive, so in the root of your hard drive with FTP, if you go into the data folder and then you'll find that GoldHEN folder, if you just delete that folder entirely, if you're happy to set everything up again from scratch, delete that whole GoldHEN folder entirely and then rerun the GoldHEN payload again after a reboot, and that will recreate that folder and all of the files, and that should give you a refresh on everything so that it should hopefully fix any issues that you were potentially having if the plugins are not working properly for you, like the patch plugin, for example, or the AFR plugin, and then try and reinstall the plugins as shown in my tutorials. So again, I'll leave those tutorials linked down in the video description. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, do leave it a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.